Greetings, all you crazy people out there. This is the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Blue, coming to you live from the studio apartment in Fort Worth, Texas. This is a listener-supported, fan-supported podcast given to you absolutely free of charge. A couple ways to continue supporting the show is to listen, like, review, share it on all platforms. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and we are on YouTube. So go ahead and share it with your friends. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a funny comment or whatever. We'd love to respond back and, shoot the shit with you. Also, we are supported because of we continue to gain support and give it to you free of charge by the wonderful sponsors that we have for this show. As always, cheetah stands. Guys, you already know what I always say. If you're going to have those expensive lights, put them on some stands that actually are worth the damn, okay? So go to cheetahstands.com/Shutter Saga Podcast. Get 10% off your next purchase, okay? You guys know how I feel about cheetah stands. Protect your lights, protect your gear. We're also sponsored this episode by Fundy. Guys, if you're going to sell, you need to be able to show it. You need to use technology, things that are going to work with you, help sell your products to your clients, whether it's wall art, albums, album design, slideshows, things that help elevate your business and make you a power player in this industry. So go to fundy.com. Andrew is giving away some awesome free trials right now. If you guys got any questions, just reach out to the team at Fundy and they will get you taken care of. Also, lastly, 17 hats, guys. You already know if you're going to run a business, you need to look legit. You need to be legit. You need to automate. Give yourself your time because running a business is time consuming. So why not automate it? Why not partner yourself up with a company that's going to help assist you with invoices, contracts, you name it. 17 Hats covers it. Okay, there's a reason why they call themselves 17 Hats because all the hats that we wear as business owners and entrepreneurs are covered by that one lovely program and software. So go to 17hats.com, check it out. They got a free trial. Also, if you're interested, in the show notes, there will be a promo code to get you 50% off your first year with 17 Hats. All right, that's all I got for you. I'm just going to went ahead, blew through the sponsors, blew through the intro really fast because I really, really, really want to get this conversation going. Guys, when I started back in the day, and I say back in the day, I'm talking like year one, A1, day one, when I was in Arizona trying to figure it out, there were a few names in our little inner circle of people that were starting out, people that were seasoned or whatever. And this gentleman, he's probably known me, one of the few people in this industry that's known me the longest back when I was a crop sensor for shoot and burn photographer, putting it on DVDs, running the muck in Arizona. He came. I met him just through the grapevine, through our mutual friends and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I got the one and only Brady Puryear. I just messed up your last name. Brady, I've always known him as Brady.
Brady Puryear is correct, man.
Yes,
that's right.
Okay. I did say correctly. Yeah. Brady, man, how you doing?
Doing good. What watch are you wearing today? Most important.
Oh, yeah. Let me start. Okay, so he is a watch fanatic. Not only is he a hell of a photographer, he's a watch fanatic. And because I knew I was going to do the episode, I went ahead and threw on my Seiko.
Put the Seiko on.
Yes, had to throw on the Seiko. What are we wearing today, Brady?
It's a little Vacheron homage.
Okay. I got the Orient Open Heart on order right now. Should be here in the next couple weeks. So I got that, and I got another watch on deck for my debut teaching out at the Boca Summits.
That's cool. Nice way to celebrate.
Gifted myself a nice little watch for the occasion.
Very cool.
But all Brady, right. I mean, let's just get right into it. I mean, you're coming to us from Colorado. You've been Colorado native for quite some time, right?
No, California.
Oh God, why's it called? Can't even talk to him.
You're thinking Sean Lara, baby.
That's what it was. Sean. Yeah, I think a watch guy, photographer. I was thinking about Sean. But no, yeah, that's right. So, not Santa Monica. It was oh gosh, what's it? You were because you're Bay Area, was it? Or you Northern?
No, I'm in SoCal. Yeah, so like right in between Orange County and LA.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I'm out here with Ning Wong and that whole SoCal crew. Yeah.
Okay, so you got the power players, the SoCal boys.
My boy Pi, he's out here.
Nice. Yep. So I mean, California. I mean, obviously, it's California. It's a dream to shoot there and everything. Building it when you first started, because you now 17 years now in the game.
18 full time, yeah. So 2007 was my first year full time.
Okay, so 07. I gotta ask, what was the first camera that you donned that you put your hands on and said, I'm gonna start this crazy career called photography? What was it?
Canon 20D, and I was borrowing it from a full time photographer. They were just letting me use it when they weren't using it. And then aside from that, I was renting, and then I bought a 30D. But yeah, started on the 20D.
So this was kind of like the original fake it till you make it back when, I mean, because I remember the first time I got my big wedding, I went and I rented a full frame camera. And like an idiot, I didn't just use what I had that I've been building everything on. I went, I was like, I'm gonna look legit. I showed up, I had a Canon 5D Mark II and everything, and then I was just like, oh crap, how do you use this? Like, because I'm sitting there learning off a Nikon crop sensor, and then I said, go get a 5D because the guy that I was learning from, he used the 5D. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to get this full frame. And I'm sitting there just struggle city. And then I end up just putting it to the side, wasted the money renting it, and you end up using the lovely D5000. You know, when
Well, I didn't do that. I was doing graphic design, and I did graphic design for a wedding photographer. And then he offered to basically mentor me and teach me wedding photography just for fun. I just thought it was fun. Shot a couple things with him, and he thought I kind of had like a natural talent for it. Super young at the time. And so he was cool. And then before I shot any weddings on my own, I third shot and carried bags for him on 30 weddings in a single year. Yeah. So by the time I shot my first paid wedding, I had third/second shot about 30, and had a very good idea of, camera. I even, my very first wedding, I shot off camera flash, which is bananas. Not my first one that I shot with him, but the first one that I shot on my own. So, because he taught me off camera, like right out of the gate.
Oh, he made sure you hit the ground running. I mean, like I said, with similar parallels with because I remember being in Arizona, second or third shooting for Trevor, just learning the ropes, figuring things out. Second, third shooting for Brian, just getting after it. When I got my first wedding, it was by accident because it was one of those random, hey, Facebook group, need a second shooter. Okay, applied it, showed him my work, sent him referrals. He said, hey, this guy's solid. You should give him a shot. He'll do whatever you need to do to help you out. Got a guy's named Tony. He says, okay, cool. Here's the address. Here's the info. I'll see you Saturday. I said, great. Show up Saturday. Hey, where's Tony at? Oh, Tony's walking out. Apparently, he has an argument with the bride and the groom for money, and said, you got 30 seconds to give me the rest of my money or I'm out of here. And they did it. And he walked out and didn't give them opportunity to get the money together. But apparently what they were trying to do was saying at the end of the night, they were going to rip open envelopes and just give them cash out of the gift envelopes, which I thought was tacky. But either way, they were like, we're going to pay you. He's like, no, you're not going to wait till the end of the night and pay me because you're going to forget and this and that. And they had the argument. And I'm just sitting there like walking in going, okay, what is happening? And then they were like, well, he clearly doesn't want the money. Do you want the money? And I'm just like, yeah, sure. And I'm like on the phone, like trying to message Brian, like, dude, what do I do? He's like, shoot the wedding. I was like, am I ready? He's like, you've been ready. And he was like, at this juncture, you got nothing to lose because if you go in there and you totally screw this wedding up, they won't even get mad because you weren't even supposed to be the photographer in the first place. So you got nothing to lose. So I was just like, okay, let's go for it. And I remember just shooting my heart off, and then it ended up working out. And I was just like, but I was sweating bullets the entire time.
That's wild.
God. I was like, I was not ready for that. All right. In my head, I wasn't ready, but because I was just copying and pasting everything that I've done, watching everybody else do what they do, I just did the same thing and it worked out. But nothing to the extent of doing off-camera flash. I was just like, please be bright. But it was Arizona, so the sun didn't set forever.
Yeah, it was wild for me because I didn't know any better. I just learned from that guy, and that guy had been shooting for like 15 years. And so he was like, hey, well, if you're going to shoot, you need to learn how to shoot in the day, but also too, if you end up at a reception that's outdoors and you got nothing to bounce off of, you're going to need to use, off-camera lights or whatever to shoot, first dances and other stuff, right? You're outdoors and you got a cake cut. What are you going to bounce? You either got, can't bounce light off of there. You're going to do direct flash, which looks like crap, or some kind of off-camera thing. And so later, a couple years later, when I went to WPPI for the first time in 2009, that's when I realized that it was weird that I was so new in the industry and knew off-camera flash just as well as I knew everything else, because people were just blown away as if it was the hardest thing in the world to learn.
Even to this day, people still struggle with off-camera flash. I think it's because as the technology gets better, they always say with the cameras getting better than they were, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, it's bridging the gap between skill and,
Oh, absolutely.
and I
I'm sure you
and to
remember
some
like
extent,
Pocket Wizards.
oh yeah, and to some extent it's true. But I said at the end of the day, there's still a level of skill sets that the seasoned pros know how to do. That's what I say. You can give me the greatest camera in the world, and yeah, I'm going to do great. But if you can give me the worst camera, but if you give me a trigger and you give me a strobe, I can bridge the gap, and then that now I can show the difference between. Because at the end of the day, a natural light photographer, as talented as they are, they're gonna come across that barrier where the natural light isn't going to be the light they need for that moment, and then that's where being able to reach in your back pocket and do off camera flash or, manipulate lighting, as I always say, like chasing the light, finding the great light, or whatever, being skilled in those areas, which that doesn't come overnight. That does come with trial and error and, trying and failing and then trying again and then failing some more. And then when you get it right the first time, you're like, yeah. And then you try it the next day and it's totally different. You're like, what's going on? And you learning about all the different lighting styles. But going back to it, like, what was it about weddings that, drew you in?
I wasn't drawn in at first, that's for sure. So he shot weddings, and I wanted to learn how to do photography. And he taught me, and right out of the gate, I started shooting like bands. I just wanted to shoot bands, so concerts and like shooting bands and like styled shoots for like album covers and stuff like that is what I did right when I picked up the camera. But I had never shot a wedding. And then he was kind of teaching me photography just on the side for a couple of months. And then he was like, just come do a wedding with me. And I third shot and carried bags and stuff like that. And I had a blast. I had a lot of fun. And at the very end of the night, he let me shoot one picture of the bride and groom, because obviously so much of it was already covered by him and the second shooter. But he let me shoot one photo of the bride and groom and pose it and everything. And we just lit it with like a video light. And so shot that. And then it was local. And I ended up like running into the bride and groom in the grocery store like a couple months later. And they were like, oh my gosh, we love that last photo that you took. It came out so great. It's one of our favorite pictures. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But I just realized at that point that like weddings were basically an hour and a half of getting ready, a 30-minute ceremony, and 5 hours of party, right? And I'm an extrovert, and I was in my early 20s. And so, yeah, 2007, I was 22, and I just turned 40. So yeah, 18 years. But yeah, I had a blast. I didn't think weddings would be that fun. And so once I did one, then I was like, oh, this is awesome. Let's do more of these. And then yeah, he had a huge schedule, big volume guy. And so yeah, I ended up third/second shooting about 30 with him that year, and then got my own year and started shooting the next year. And at the time, I didn't really have any kind of like direction. I wasn't going to college or anything like that. I was trying to do the graphic design thing, and it wasn't super working out. And so now I got some person who's like successful business owner in the creative space teaching me stuff and basically showing me how to run this business. I'm like, this is an opportunity. I got to take this. So I just kind of dove in head first. But yeah, all it took was one wedding. And I shot some other stuff, high school seniors and stuff like that, but it didn't really connect with me the same way that it did with weddings.
Nice. I mean, I always said weddings are my bread and butter. Anytime I do portrait work, that's when I just get to have creative fun. But like, I mean, so 2007, you started out your second and third shooting. You're going forward. You survived the late 2000s. Then you go into the 2010s. Now we're in the 2020s. We're talking decade plus, almost 20 years now. What's kept you motivated this entire time? Because that's I say these numbers out loud specifically because, for lack of a better term, and in my book, I call it a career. You've had a career so far. You have what a lot of people are dreaming of right now, which is being able to make a living and have a career in photography. So how have you been able to? What's kept you motivated so far up during this time? Because I feel like we're just now really scratching the surface with your career.
Yeah, and yeah, for context, right? Like, so yeah, I shot full time for 12 years. I shot over 500 weddings. And then I started the album company, Blacksmith Albums, in 2013, but then I still shot another 5 years full time until I transitioned to full-time CEO of my current business. And so motivation, I mean, to be honest, like I didn't really have it's not like I had a bunch of other backup options, right? So for context, like I grew up in like a drug house, and my parents got divorced when I was a kid. I lived with my mom, who was an addict, and freaking had tweakers in my house all the time and stuff like that. I didn't graduate high school. I barely even went, and emancipated myself, moved out of the house, had nowhere to go, was living in my car, and then just got a job like bussing tables at a restaurant. You know what I mean? So it's not like I had a ton of choices. It was either, work in restaurants or work construction or do this new photography thing. Then I started shooting, and then like, oh wait, I was still keeping like a part-time job at a restaurant. Oh wait, happens, that restaurant goes out of business, right? So I just kept doing photo. I mean, literally 08 to like 2011, like no one was hiring, especially no one with like a no high school and or college degree, right? So I don't think I can sit up here and go like, oh man, like I was so my motivation was pay my rent. You know what I mean?
Money is
Yeah.
a great motivation.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's the best answer in the world. I tell people that all the
Yeah,
time.
so I didn't have a million things that I was good at. And so I had learned from someone who's successful, even though the recession was going on in 08, people still get married. Tons of people still getting married. Everyone's having weddings and getting married. Maybe budgets were different than they were in 05, 06, 07, but people got married. They still hired him for, at the time, it was like $3,500 back in like pre 2010, which was still good money. And I was, I was starting in like, the $1,500 to $2,100 range, right? Like 2000, 2007, 2008, 2009. And so it was good for me because I was the cheap guy, you know? And now sometimes you'll see more established photographers like, oh, all these new photographers coming in here with their low prices. It's like, yeah, that's how everybody starts.
No one starts out.
Everybody comes in
6,000, 7,000.
Yeah, maybe they're not comfortable with their own work yet. They don't know their own value. Also, too, they're just a brand new business. They haven't marketed a ton. They don't have a ton of demand, which means they can't charge very high of a price. But like, that's how everyone gets going. Like to your point, like who starts and then their first year goes like $4,000 or high, you know what I mean?
Out the gate, just
pretty rare.
Unless you inherited it, unless you saw someone do it and you were studying for years before you ever broke out, and said, I'm going to be a photographer, and you already had a model to follow or something. Like, yeah, I guarantee that, yeah, there's an outlier out there that probably had that or whatever.
Oh, I have a buddy Brett that I just thought of.
Most of us, when we started, we
got a bachelor's degree in photo, right? And was like a very good photographer, and then started shooting weddings. And so like right out of the gate, he started charging like a fair amount of money for weddings. But yeah, he had bachelor's in photography, was already like a really good photographer, and then transitioned, like in LA too, in that 08 period. A lot of this is like when the iPhone came out and stuff like that. And like newspapers were firing their photographers and just having their journalists take pictures with the iPhone, which was nuts. Even back then, still happening today. But a lot of people who were in other jobs that were doing photography that lost those jobs in 08, they started shooting weddings. Those people started off a little bit higher price point. They were like very well experienced or whatever. But people who like me, who didn't go to college for it and just kind of was like learning through trial and error and some mentorship, no, we were starting off low priced. So yeah, motivation, like I said, was just a had to kind of thing. And I started shooting, like I said, 22. I got married at 25. I bought a house at 26, when houses were affordable. And so, yeah, I was married. I had a mortgage. I had bills to pay. And once photography overtook the income potential of bussing at a restaurant, it was my highest paid opportunity I had. So I tried to do as much as I possibly could. Second shot a crazy amount. But it wasn't like tons of options. And like, I kept going with photography despite the odds. It's like all I had.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, and to talk about pricing again, like I remember when I first started, my philosophy was if I'm getting paid more from this wedding than I get from teaching, it was a win. So a $1,200 wedding was a win because that was more than what my paycheck was. And then when you start getting, like again, my first in that moment when someone paid me 2,000 for a wedding, I thought I was high end. Oh, I made it, Not really, and it wasn't until I met a portrait photographer that said, "Oh man, yeah, I charged 2,000 for a wallet." And you're like, "Wait, what? Huh?"
Or yeah, you back in the day, you think 1,200 for a wedding, and then you realize booking the wedding, shooting the engagement session, culling and editing that, hiring a second shooter, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So what you're getting $1,200 for 100 hours worth of work, you're getting $12 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it wasn't until you get the education and the knowledge dropped on you, you get the reality check. But I mean, again, it's a process. To this day, if I didn't have people better than me that I was chasing, I would still think I'm doing great because the attitude I always had was if I was getting more from photography than I was a paycheck, then I could argue anyone down. So, well, I'm making more as a photographer than I am, working for being a high school teacher or working for Chase Bank or working for Ally, whatever I was doing, because I got my background obviously was financial sector, so I was working all the major companies. But when my checks were more than that I was making there, I always had that if they did a mass firing, I wasn't going to cry about it, because I was, in '09 when I got out of the Army, working for Bank of America, came to work one day and they just sought to fire 300 people. And I was one of them. I was just like, what the hell just happened? And then I ended up becoming I pivoted, became a high school teacher and did that for 4 years. And then when I started photography, started making more money as a photographer, it was like, oh, no brainer. I'm doing better on my own than working for for this school that doesn't appreciate what we do and the amount of hours we put into it. And I thought it was like, this is a step up because I give away so many free hours teaching. Like, dude, I'll dedicate, the time I have into photography and just get better and just that grind. It was a fun time because you were learning and everything, and you could take a lot of risks. But then as you get older, you start building, and then you become a brand. You become all these different things. You worry about playing. You can't throw caution to the wind like you did when you first started. So how have you been able to adjust and kind of like survive these ebbs and flows? Because I mean, you've been a part of the shoot burn movement. When film came back, when film died, but then it came back when people weren't printing anymore. Now we're coming back with printing. Obviously the recession, COVID. So again in your career span, these momentous moments that have rocked our industry, you survived them. So how have you been able to maneuver through those?
Yeah. So, right here, Bubba.
There you go.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Dave.
I think it's simple. You just got to be saving money all the time. And like, before I knew who Dave Ramsey was, I didn't like borrowing money. I never wanted to borrow money. I never wanted to owe money. I knew a lot of friends who would borrow money from people and then change their relationship and stuff like that. And so all the way going back to when I was younger. So yeah, when I left my house, I had to live in my car. I had a job at the time, but I didn't have enough money and no credit, so I couldn't get an apartment. And I was looking for like rooms to rent, but nothing was coming up. So I ended up sleeping in my car for 7 months, and just was sleeping like 24-hour parking lots at like Del Tacos and Denny's and stuff like that. Anything that had like a lit parking lot because it's less sketch. And where other people are coming in at 4 a.m, so your car is not just parked out there by itself. You're not like looking sketchy being parked there. And so I think it was one of those things where back then I could have gotten a credit card and like borrowed money to pay all my expenses, borrowed money for groceries and borrowed money for everything else, and then just gotten a room and paid rent, right? And then just piled up a ton of debt. But even back then, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, I can't afford it. You know what I mean? It didn't even occur to me to like borrow money. And so I've carried that with me. And then, yeah, learned like Dave Ramsey, like baby steps, whatever, emergency fund and building up a savings and stuff like that. But, unfortunately, I have a lot of friends who are going out of business last year and this year. And the main reason that they're not able to continue on is because when years are good and they are making money, they're not saving any of it. They're remodeling the backyard at their house. They're replacing their vehicle. Maybe they're getting their first home. Everyone has all these things they want to buy, every time they're making money, all they can think about, even before they get the money, is what they're going to spend it on. We just don't really have a culture that saves very often. And for me, at least, going through like, 08 and then, COVID as a company, and we didn't have to lay anybody off. We didn't miss a single payroll, any of that kind of stuff. It all came from savings, and if the market dips and we need more clients, then we can spend money on marketing to get clients because we have a lot of money saved, So that's not the answer that people want to hear. And I think the main reason they don't want to hear it is because they go, oh, well, that must be nice. I don't have any money to save. But the truth of the matter is that you can always save money just depending on like how much like your lifestyle is. Now, if you're a single mom with 3 kids or something like that, some like very particular thing, sure. But I mean, I was saving money when I lived in my car. You know what I mean? I was also, so I'm Christian, but so I tithe like 10% of my income. And like, I remember at one point I was only making $1,000 a month after taxes, and I was giving 100 of it. And that was like so difficult to do. But I just felt like, hey, like if I can make it work on 1,000, I can make it work on 900. This is something that's important to me. I'm going to do it. But that just as well could have been money that I, was putting in a savings account or something like that. And so save money, save money, save money, save money. And then when the rainy day comes, like grandma has told you it's going to come, you got your rainy day fund and you're good. You can weather the storm. And when the storm's over and things clear up and business gets back to being good, sweet, then you're off to the races again. But when business is good, if you're thinking it's never going to dip and you're on some wild like success ride, you're tripping. You're tripping.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm right there with you in the ebbs and flows, and I'm, being a man of faith as well. Like I totally understand the conundrum that, when you do tithe, they're like, oh man, you look at that money, you're like, I could pay this bill, like I'm giving, whatever. But it's always like to say, I'm a firm believer in karma as well, and I believe like, you reap what you sow. So it's like if you sow that seed in the right way, it comes back to you. It may not come back to you in a very indirect way. It may come back to you through opportunity. It may just come back to you through goodwill, and just that time we're like, man,
I mean, you can save 10%, right? Because like if you're
having slow months,
you just pay it and figure it out.
Yep. And it's just like, when you have that slow month, then all of a sudden you get that call like, hey, I'm interested in getting a wedding. We're getting married. And then it's like, boom, there's a retainer. You're like, oh, now you're just like, so that's why I say it's easy for me to give, because I've been in those moments far more than I haven't, where, I know it's going to come back to me in some way, shape, or form, whether it's through opportunity, a new booking, a new, activity or something or just something through within my family, whether it's my wife or kids, them just having a good day, whatever. Like I know it's there. And so that's why, it's easy to say like, oh, I don't want to give up this money, but then it's like, but it is, as if you're a person of faith, whatever, religion you follow, it's a part of our creed and what we come up, how we were raised. So, yeah, you give and, not with the hopes that you're going to get it back in return. You do it because it's the right thing, because you know that it's going to go to help, or it's going to go to sow into someone else that may be in a less fortunate situation. And again, if you come from the journey that you've been on, obviously your level of resilience, you know what it's like to go with that. You know what it's like to live in a car. You just like, so when someone's going through it, you know what it's like. I always, I tell my kids all the time, whenever, I'm constantly humbled when I'm driving on the road and I see someone homeless. I said, because I know a wrong move left or a wrong move right, that could have easily been me, especially coming out of the military. How many, veterans, when you hear the stories of like a guy I served with who's now homeless, who can't even, who living in a car would be a step up at that point. And then you find out and you're like, wow. And then you're like, how did it happen? You just, they get caught up in something, their mental health is, deteriorated, and it just, it goes from bad to worse. So I know, the realities of life have kicked in. I'm always reminded, constantly, to just remain humble, remain a servant, within my faith and everything, just continue to push forward and, overcome it, because you're going to overcome any obstacle that comes your way.
You can if in the story of your life, you don't see yourself as the victim.
Exactly.
So I have a lot of friends that I grew up with in my area that are all kind of a very like drug heavy area. And same thing, parents were, addicts and a lot of gang violence and stuff like that in that area. And yeah, some people just stay in the same exact spot. And, when things aren't going well for them, then they have their story, which is, hey, man, I grew up in a crappy area. My parents were addicts, blah, 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 blah. And it's their scapegoat. It's their get out of jail free card for them when they look in the mirror, not to have achieved what they wish they would have achieved. So they give themselves a free pass. They're the victim. They believe that there's nothing that they could have done differently to have succeeded, and then they stay right where they're at. So and listen, people have been through a lot worse than what I've been through, and there's it's not all just willpower and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think so much of success